Okay, so just a quick thing that I learned. Well, change of plans is what I mean. Um, so that's the walls. I'm happy with that. That's going to get 2 coats for sure. That's the scratch coat, and then I'm going to put on a finish coat as well. Up here, this is the can wall. Was the can wall. It still is the can wall, but I covered the cans in 1 layer of plaster, cement plaster, all the way down, all the way around the back. What the plan was to cover these back cans up with a whole layer that was going to cover this whole piece of concrete all the way down with 1 layer and maybe 2. And then I changed my mind. I'll just do 1 layer because why bother with that? And then I started covering them. I realized that this is all going to dry the same color. We're going to paint it the same color. This irregular look that I'm looking for is going to be right where the cans are, right in the middle. That's fine. I don't need to put another layer of plaster to cover this area here or even along this top edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off this wire right here because I'm not going to put any plaster there. I'm going to put plaster on the top here for the shelf. I'll go ahead and put it back to the edge, but why plaster that already? It's already a solid a solid concrete wall. So over there, same thing. There's a few cans over there that you can see that I haven't finished yet. I'm just going to cover the cans, just enough to cover them up and give it an irregular look, and then go ahead and cut this wire lath off across this top edge here. So I'm just not going to use that. So in hindsight, I made myself a lot of work by bending all that and putting it in place. I wish I hadn't now, obviously. So the bottom line is, this is never going to be visible from the ground, okay, unless you're like 8 feet tall. This is never going to be visible. So it's going to look kind of flat right above this edge of this shelf, but you're only going to see that if you climb up on a ladder. And you can see I'm on the 4th, I'm 5'8", and I'm on the 4th rung ladder, so this is another 4 feet just for me to be able to see this. So yeah, not going to be visible from the floor. Okay, this video is going to be just about my progress and about a couple things I've learned about the process as well that might help you if you're going to end up doing something like this. So you can see where I started here, where it's wet. I started about 9:30. It's about 2:30 now, so that's taking a couple breaks, but that's one person working, mixing the cement and the sand and the cement mixer, dragging it in here with the wheelbarrow, spreading it, and doing the scratch coat, of course. And so I'm pretty happy with how well it came out. I'm 5'8", so this is a little over 6 feet that I can reach right here. And as far as this edge goes, where the lath goes over the wood, that went really super easy and fast just because the lath was so stable and hardly moved. So one of the things I learned was I did take some extra time, even though I put screws in the lath everywhere. I went around and smashed on the lath everywhere, and everywhere it was kind of springy, I put another screw in just to tighten it up. It took a few extra screws, 30 or 40 extra screws, 50 extra screws, I don't know, some extra washers, but it made things so much easier. Because when the lath is flexing, it's breaking the concrete that you've already spread around it, and when you're trying to spread more in that flexy area, it's just super annoying. So that's one thing I learned. The other thing that helped me a lot was, instead of sitting like this and facing the wall and trying to spread it like this, I would get 90 degrees to it with my knees and then pick up my mud and then spread it like this and then scrape it like that. So I'd apply it like this, push it up, and then tie it in like this, push it up, tie it in. And that angle is a lot easier on your wrist, and you can actually kind of see the thickness of it. Then you get some kind of perspective because you're looking at the side of it, of how much you're putting on and how much you're spreading. So that helped a lot. Something else I learned, I was originally buying the tube sand in these tubes. You can probably see them on the trailer there, and kind of expensive, like $5 a tube, and it's like 50 pounds or 60 pounds, 60 pounds. It's great sand. It's not plaster sand, so there is some kind of little bit heavier stuff in it, but it's not like rocks. So I thought, well, I'll get a load of sand delivered. Great. So had a load of sand delivered a couple days ago, and it's all covered in a tarp there, but it has a lot of rocks in it. And I don't mean just like pea gravel size, I mean like bigger rocks. So this is a scoop of it right here, and you can see even that kind of rock right there, that's not that big of a deal, but there are a lot bigger rocks in here. And as you're spreading it, you hit that rock, and that rock will just start tearing out your plaster, so you got to pick it out. So you know, had I bought plaster sand, I think that's going to be much more expensive if they've had to stratify it more and it's finer, and it would be ideal for spreading this. But I want, get out of the wind, I want kind of a rough look, so just something to think about. I kind of want this rough look, so I may not even use a sponge. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm talking about using a sponge to kind of smooth it. I may not even do that. I may just spread it by hand and just kind of leave it, just because I kind of like that look. So a few rocks here and there were pretty annoying though. I was throwing them over here for a while, and you can see the size of the rocks that was in the sand. I threw probably 15 or 20 over here, and I've tracked them into the ground, but just rocks like this were in my sand. That's not sand. Obviously this is, you know, it's almost more like road base is what they sent me, because it does have a lot of pea gravel size stuff in it, which doesn't bug me much, but those bigger rocks were sort of annoying. So just something to keep in mind if you're buying sand for this. Maybe you can look at the quality of the sand that you're getting and go down and look at it before you just order it like I did, and be a little more choosy about it. Okay, and what else? So I don't know how many square feet this is, but one coat, 5 hours of work. I'm not pushing it. I'm not working hard. I'm just kind of working at a steady pace. It's pretty hot in here. It's got to be in the 80s. And I think if you had several people, you could knock a room out like this really, really quickly with one coat. Especially if you had somebody just mixing and then a couple people spreading, it would go super fast. So, okay, last thing I learned was kind of a painful experience, like literally painful. I've worked with concrete all my life, like over 30 years, pouring foundations, sidewalks, of course, millions of post holes. It just goes on and on. I've never been burned by it, but I got burned the other day, and a little hard to see, but I've got a 3rd-degree burn there that's totally insensate. I can't feel anything around that. And on my pinky there, and why that little spot, I don't know. The day that happened, though, it was kind of burning a little bit, and then it would stop, and it would start burning again, it would stop, and I had my hands in these gloves right here. And so here's the lesson. These gloves have like a stretchy back and stretchy cuff on them. They're rubbery here. You can feel really well with them. I like them. But some concrete had gotten down inside this right pinky, and some cement had, and I was sweating, of course, and there's moisture in there, and it just burned the heck out of my finger. I knew it could happen, but it never happened to me, so I was like, well, I was kind of in denial about it. So these gloves, not a good idea. These gloves, better idea. So these are, I don't know, I picked these up at Ace. They were like $7 a pair. These are the largest. They're nice and tight around the wrist here. So they're not always slipping down. And they do go up pretty high. I use those today and my hands are fine. The day I burned my hands though, a few days ago, that night, both my hands just ached like crazy. Like that. I don't know what arthritis is like because I don't have it, thankfully, but both my hands just ached and ached and ached, like annoyingly ached, like hurt a lot. And it went away by the next day, and my hands were almost bleached white. They were white from the pH. So the pH of this cement is like 12 to 14, which is very alkaline. And if you compare that to your body's pH is 7.4, whatever it is, skin pH is a little different than that. But acid on one side of the pH spectrum, 1, 2, or 3 pH, that'll burn your hands, right? And battery acid. And then on the other side of the spectrum is the alkaline side. 12 to 14 is pretty much the end of the spectrum, and that's about where concrete is. So it's no wonder I got burned. So regular burn creams aren't supposed to work on it. We end up putting aloe vera on it just to kind of cool it off. It stopped hurting after about 2 days. And it just kind of hurt around the area. Made my knuckles hurt. It was just crazy. I've never experienced that before. So do get the right gloves. Don't try to chintz on gloves or do this with bare hands. Some of you concrete guys are probably laughing at me right now, or what an idiot. But in 30 years, I've walked in concrete in my tennis shoes and got my feet soaking wet, and I've never had this happen before, but it finally happened to me. Obviously, you don't want to breathe that dust either, so that can be a bad deal for your lungs. And some people actually get a contact dermatitis from it, like a chronic contact dermatitis from concrete dust. So I haven't yet, but I'm taking better measures to protect myself with these gloves. I bought several pair of them. Once they start getting wet on the inside, and I'm taking them off and on. Once they get wet, I can't get them back on. So I just bought several pairs. So I'll put a pair up just to dry while I'm using the second pair, and then if I need a third pair too, I'll just go ahead and get a third pair, and then wash them off when I'm done. Wash out the insides when you're done as well to make sure you get all the concrete out the inside of them, and then I'm going to hang them up and let them dry. Okay, lesson learned. Okay, worked about 5 hours today. Got a lot of mud spread. Got the top edge done with the ladder where I couldn't reach from the ground. And scratch coat done. All the way around. Got these cans all covered here, all along the back, as well as over here. So that's good. I still have to do the top shelf there. It's still welded wire, but all the metal lath is covered. I got a second coat on this part right here, and I wanted to get this done because the next step is to go ahead and dig a foundation right here. I'm just going to build like a 12 by 12 footer all along here in front of these posts. And that'll be my footer for my can wall. So that footer will have rebar in it. It'll have rebar sticking up, and I'm going to tie all that rebar together and then build my can wall around that rebar. So I think that'll give it enough strength and support that it won't, it'll support the weight of the dirt. So the second coat here went really well. I did end up a lot of rocks in my sand because I didn't get plaster sand. I just got sand from the gravel place, from the concrete place. Actually, it's a concrete supply place. And so what I did was I stratified it. I ended up sifting it with some expanded metal. You can't see it there, but there's a piece of expanded metal over there. And I set it on top of the wheelbarrow, that wheelbarrow right there, and then just shoveled the sand on it, and that got out the big rocks. So as I was spreading this final coat, I was trying to smooth it out. Now, I don't want a smooth look on the rest of this. This is the kind of look that I want on the rest of it, because this is going to be visible, okay? But this, I wanted it to be pretty smooth because this is going to be, my EPDM rubber liner is going to go against this. So I don't want anything sharp, so I'm going to have to go over it with some kind of, I don't know what, to try to knock down any high spots or sharp spots because I don't want that poking the EPDM rubber. And so I wanted all the big rocks out, and I wanted this as smooth as possible, so I did smooth it out with my hand. I started to use a trowel, but I just went ahead and used my hand. It looks like it's pretty easy now, like these pieces that are sticking up right here, just to come along and knock them off by hand, and that'll take care of most of it. So at some point I'm going to have to come along and just kind of smooth it out a little bit with, I don't know what, with something just to scrape and knock off the high sharp spots. Okay. So this is the only thing that's got the second coat except for this little section right here. And this was just using up some of the mud that I had. You can see how quick it's drying here in the sun. I should probably spray it down so it doesn't dry too quick. Already too late there, it's already dry. But that's the kind of look I'm going for. So I'm pretty happy with that.